Welcome to London Property Digest, your essential 10-minute audio recap for staying informed on London's property market. So you've been following London's market closely, and you want to understand where things are headed. Well, we're going to dive deep into the latest UBS report and some other sources. Give you those key insights.
Sounds good.
They've analyzed 25 cities globally, looking for signs of overvaluation, those classic bubble warning signs. And we're going to see how London stacks up against those international hotspots.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that the UBS Global Real Estate Bubble Index actually uses a pretty robust methodology. It doesn't just look at price-to-income ratios. It digs into things like the ratio of house prices to rents, the level of lending, and even construction activity to gauge how sustainable those price increases are.
So it's not just about whether prices are high, but whether those high prices are actually justified by the underlying economic fundamentals. That makes sense.
Exactly. And what they found globally is that overall, bubble risk has actually decreased lately for the second year in a row. But, and this is a big but, it's not the same story everywhere.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Which regions are seeing the biggest shifts?
Well, Europe saw the most significant decline in bubble risk. Cities like Frankfurt, Munich, and Stockholm all experienced pretty substantial price drops in 2022 and 2023, largely due to those rising interest rates we've all been feeling.
Yeah, that does sound painful for anyone who bought at the peak. But I guess it's also a sign that things are becoming a bit more, dare I say, realistic.
It's definitely a mixed bag. On one hand, you have people who may be facing losses, but on the other, this correction is bringing prices more in line with local incomes and rents, making those markets more sustainable in the long run. It's about finding that balance, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, what about other parts of the world? What's happening in Asia Pacific, for instance?
Asia-Pacific has been remarkably stable. Cities like Sydney and Vancouver actually saw prices hold up pretty well despite those global interest rate hikes. They're grappling with a severe housing shortage, which, as you can imagine, helps prop up prices even when affordability takes a hit.
Classic supply and demand. Even if fewer people can buy, if there are way more buyers than homes available, prices can stay stubbornly high.
Precisely. Now, across the Pacific in the U.S., things are heating up. Bubble risk actually increased there, with Miami taking the top spot.
Miami. Wow. What's driving that frenzy?
It's a confluence of factors. A booming luxury market, wealthy individuals seeking a sunny tax haven, and relative affordability compared to other major U.S. cities.
So it's like all the ingredients for a price surge are perfectly in place. But is it sustainable? I mean, we've heard about those concerns regarding Miami, haven't we?
The UBS report does highlight some worries. Think rising insurance costs due to environmental risks, and of course the ever-present threat of rising sea levels.
Okay, that's definitely something to consider. Before we zoom in on London, are there any other global hotspots we should have on our radar?
Dubai is definitely one to watch. It had the biggest increase in bubble risk, mainly due to explosive population and income growth. However, there's also a significant amount of speculative off-plan sales happening, which could lead to a correction down the line.
Off-plan sales. What does that mean for our listeners who may not be familiar with the term?
Good point. Off-plan sales essentially mean buying a property before it's even built, based on plans and promises. While it can be enticing, it also adds a layer of uncertainty. So Dubai is a bit of a wild card right now. High growth, but also high potential for volatility.
So Dubai is a bit like a high-stakes poker game. Now, let's shift our focus to London. How do these global trends play out right here on our home turf?
Well, London's market has been on quite a journey lately. Remember back in, say, 2015, when prices were seemingly unstoppable?
Oh, I remember those days. You practically needed a winning lottery ticket just to afford a tiny flat within the M25.
Yeah, right. But then came the correction. London prices have fallen back to roughly where they were in 2013, in real terms. That means adjusting for inflation. So the drop is even more significant than it might appear at first glance. It's been a pretty substantial adjustment.
So what's been the main driver behind this correction? Is it just about interest rates? Or is there more to the story?
Interest rates have definitely played a role, making mortgages more expensive and squeezing those who are highly leveraged. But it's more nuanced than that. There's also the affordability crunch. London has always been an expensive city, but in recent years, the gap between what people earn and what properties cost has become a chasm.
It's like wages are stuck on a treadmill, while property prices are sprinting ahead on a rocket-powered one. It's no wonder so many people are feeling priced out of the market.
Exactly. And this affordability squeeze has had a knock-on effect on the rental market, too. Rents have been rising steadily, driven by those who can't afford to buy, and landlords facing higher borrowing costs themselves.
So it's a double whammy for renters.
Yeah.
Higher rents and fewer options to escape into home ownership. Where does that leave someone who's trying to get a foothold in the London market right now?
It's undoubtedly a challenging landscape for first-time buyers. They're facing that perfect storm of high prices, stagnant wages, and those pesky high interest rates.
The Bank of England did cut rates recently, though. Does that change the game at all? Or is it just a drop in the bucket?
The rate cut is interesting. It could certainly entice some buyers back into the market, especially with new construction in London still lagging behind demand. Not enough new homes are being built to meet the needs of a growing city.
So we have limited supply, potentially increasing demand thanks to lower rates. Is this a recipe for prices to start climbing again?
It's a possibility. We're already seeing signs that the correction has largely halted over the past year. The market seems to be stabilizing, finding its footing again.
Okay, so maybe not a full-blown boom, but perhaps a steadier, more sustainable growth.
It's too early to say for sure, but there's a sense of cautious optimism in the air. Now, it's important to note that we've been talking about the broader London market, but the prime market, that realm of super luxury properties, is facing its own unique set of challenges.
Ah, yes, the playground of the ultra-wealthy. What's happening in that exclusive corner of the market?
There's a lot of uncertainty swirling around potential tax changes. The government is considering increasing wealth taxes and removing VAT exemptions for private schools, which could significantly impact the lifestyle of high net worth individuals who've chosen London as their base.
That could be a game changer for the prime market. Would those individuals even consider staying in London if the tax burden increases so drastically?
It's a valid question. We're already seeing some outmigration of wealthy individuals who are choosing to park their money elsewhere, places like Dubai and Miami, with their favorable tax environments and luxury offerings, are looking increasingly tempting.
So London's prime market might be losing some of its allure. What does this all mean for the average Londoner who's just trying to find a decent place to live, not a sprawling mansion in Mayfair?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Here's the takeaway. London's property market is in a state of flux right now. It's stabilizing after a correction, but there are still a lot of moving parts, a lot of factors at play.
So buckle up. It's going to be an interesting ride. But amidst all this talk of bubbles and corrections and uncertainty, I think it's easy to lose sight of the human side of the story. What does all this mean for those who are trying to get on the property ladder for the first time? It feels like an impossible dream for so many.
Yeah, it does. It does feel that way sometimes, doesn't it? Like the dream of owning a home in London is slipping further and further away.
It's undeniably tough for first-time buyers, but it's not impossible. This recent rate cut should offer some relief, even if it's marginal. And don't forget about government schemes like Help to Buy, which can provide a much-needed boost for those struggling to save up for a deposit. So there's still hope, even in this complex market. But I think it's important to acknowledge the emotional toll this takes on people. The stress of trying to buy a home in London, the constant fear of being priced out, it's real.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial to remember that the property market is cyclical. What goes up must eventually come down, and vice versa. Those who are patient and persistent can find opportunities, even in a market like this. It might take time, but things do shift.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the frenzy and feel like you need to make a move right now. But sometimes, taking a breath and waiting for the right opportunity is the smartest move.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about the numbers, the price tags, and the interest rates. It's about finding a place that feels like home, a place where you can truly build a life.
Well said. So, for those who are in it for the long haul, London's property market still has something to offer. It's about being informed, being strategic,
Yeah.
and perhaps most importantly, being resilient.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. We've talked a lot about economic factors and market trends, but what about the social and cultural forces that are shaping London's property landscape? How will things like the rise of remote work, the changing demographics of the city, and the evolving concept of what home means impact the market in the years to come?
Excellent point. It's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about the people who live in those spaces and how their lives are changing. That's something for all of us to consider as we navigate this ever-evolving property market.
Indeed.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the London property market. We hope you found it insightful. And, as always, we encourage you to stay curious and keep exploring.
And don't forget to subscribe to London Property Digest for the latest updates on the London property market.